1984 to 1997, American heavy metal rockers Defcon dominated the music industry. Their luscious hair, head-exploding guitar solos, and demented drum beats rocked the world's airwaves since the day they released Famous Anus on Rocka Flocka Records in 1984. From backstage to onstage, VH81 found the most captive footage of Defcon through their insane years and not-so-insane years. From their club days to the years where they rocked people at arenas around the world. Through this video, we'll look at the rise and fall of the world's greatest band ever to grace the earth since the Beatles. The good times, the bad times, the awkward times, the funerals, the end of their reign. This is Behind the Music, Defcon, bitch. The summer of '84 was a hot one. Everyone's balls were sweaty, even mine. A young chap from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania by the name of Megajer put an ad in Craigslist looking for a girl to perform fellatio on his guitar. As it turns out, her friend Lefty also played guitar and was looking for a band. Both Lefty and Megajer met up and immediately started creating riffs that would later be Billboard #1s.
Sometimes you answer an ad on Craigslist and you think you're going to get to see some dick. But then he just put his dick in his guitar, and it was real weird. He said something about butt stuff, but I'm not really into butt stuff, so I just left, and I think he did butt stuff with his guitar.
A few friends from their school were thrown into the mix, starting with Ben, aka The General, the Pokemon Master on vocals, and the Robot on drums. Defcon debuted early in 1984, playing thrash, doom, melodic, gent, horrorcore, love ballad, power metal at a club known as Romp'n' Roll.
Oh man, that guy Hubert, he was probably one of the worst singers I ever saw. When he got up on stage, he just sounded like a dog barking.
One of my biggest inspirations, I played in a shitty little band called Havoc Theory. We still blow. But like, was their singer, the Pokemon Master, you know? Like, he'd really shred. He was only with the band for a couple of years, but like, it was like ball sacks were in his throat. You know, like, and he would just scream, and it was like all that would come out was ball sacks. He died. He got addicted. That's how he died. It was pretty metal. I mean, it was like 11 dudes, dick, dead. It was pretty impressive.
At the time, their name was something like Bloodline or Dark Deception, which was a rip-off lyric from the Metallica song, The Thing That Should Not Be. So they switched their name to Defcon. After a few shows, Defcon had to drop the Pokemon Master from their lineup due to his bouts with diabetophobia, which is fear of diabetes. JT filled in for a few shows here and there, but mainly Megajer assumed vocals. Also, the General was let go from the band due to his excessive drinking and drug abuse.
Alright, so there was this dude called the General, and anybody familiar with Defcon understood who the General was. And this motherfucker, he was at the clubs, he was at the shows, he was everywhere, at the practices. I mean, we could just not get rid of this guy. He'd go and buy Tylenol and Smarties, cook it up in a spoon, he'd throw, a little cotton ball in there, he'd suck the shit up with a syringe, and man, he'd tie his arm off, and whoa! And he'd be off to the goddamn moon.
Ben, he was quite a character. I knew whenever he started getting into that Smarties, I told him, stay away from that stuff. It's too sweet, you're never going to get enough of it. Heck, I knew when he ever got that, his life went in a downward spiral.
A month before the release of their album Famous Anus, Defcon needed a bassist. While at a funeral in East Etna, Megajer spotted Greg, the bassist, DeFazio, playing his upright bass. After slapping and plucking, Megajer knew he was special, so he was hired.
That bassist, whew. I knew he was weird whenever I saw him. I had an electronics class with him. He stuck both of his fingers up his nose and said he needed to get all the boogers out of his nose before he could sleep every night. I knew that kid was into some weird stuff after that. It had no surprise to me when I found out he killed all those people. Scared the shit out of me. I'm glad I wasn't around him.
Now with a legit lineup, Defcon finally started playing shows around the Pittsburgh area to promote their first album. Within 2 days, the album had sold a whopping 1 record to Mega Jer's mom, which she didn't actually pay for. By the end of the month, after their self-release Famous Anus, Defcon decided to go to a record label.
Back in '85, I was on my way to the club. I was expecting to hear some great rock music. Then I go there and the club is all shut down. So then I go to the one next door and I just hear this crazy rocking music coming from outside. I walk in, it's this insane band, Defcon. And then as soon as I heard them come out in the first song, I just knew I had to sign them to my record label, Rockaflocka Records. It was a crazy time. Back in the studio, man, it was all fucked up. And I knew from that point, as soon as I heard the first single come out, I knew I was not working another day in my life. So at the beginning of starting recording the record, they really weren't that into it. And I just knew something was wrong. They just weren't the same as they used to be. So I came in, I threw down a dime bag of Coke on the table, and I turned to Mega Jer and I go, "Listen, mother, get your ass in the back, snort the shit up, come out, and record it right the first time." And then from then on, it was nothing but history.
Defcon was set up to finally go on their first tour across the United States, opening for Billy Idol. With so many tour dates, Defcon began to earn a reputation. By the end of their first tour, Defcon had gone from a piece of shit to a household name. Even Billy Idol ended up wanting to open for them for the last 2 tour dates. From MTV to CNN, Defcon was all the news, and they had begun to book arenas around the world. In 1985, Defcon was now on their first headlining tour with Slayer and Poison. The tour lasted 90 days and covered over 120 cities, which was a world record at the time. They played thrash metal masterpieces such as Blood Red Moon and The Blackened One. This tour and this year was of huge significance, not only for the band, but also for politics. After seeing Defcon play at Washington, D.C., President Nixon finally grew a pair and visited Mikhail Gorbachev for the first time during the Cold War. It is a well-known fact that they rocked out to Blood Red Moon during their lunch hour. Due to Nintendo's release of the NES, Defcon cancelled their show in Madrid, Spain. During a public press release, Mega Jer issued the following statement: "Spaniards are a bunch of tools and do not deserve to have us perform for them. Actually, we just want a day off to play the new NES."
They canceled a show for a stupid computer machine? There was this one particular event that was quite intriguing. It was this bombing in Madrid, Spain. The fans were, as usual, wreaking havoc, raping, pillaging, destroying the city, defecating on public property, spreading their filth, their filthy, grimy being across the entire city. It's hard to believe a video game system could cause so much havoc to occur.
The reaction from Spaniards and terrorists was the bombing of El Descanso in Madrid. The bombing was caused by a terrorist group. However, there was wide speculation as to whether or not it was fans from the band in retaliation to them not playing their show in Madrid, Spain. This event sparked a revolution in music, where the fans of Defcon became a small army around the world. Fans would die for their music and would try ludicrous acts to get their name out there so the band could see. Case in point, August 2nd, 1985, Flight 191 going to California crashed in Texas, killing 137 people. Audio footage from inside the cabin of the plane showed the pilot, co-pilot, and passengers all rocking out to Defcon's self-released album Famous Anus. 2 passengers were alive long enough to tell the tale to a TV news crews on the scene. They said it was the most metal moment of their life, and Defcon rules. By the end of 1985, a war amongst U.S. civilians and now called Defcon militants erupted. All the stories leading up to December finally broke when news of an attorney, Charles Goldmark, and his family were murdered by David Rice in Seattle. David was soon caught and pledged his undying devotion and dedication to Defcon the band. He also stated that the song Dark Deception told him to do it. The trial was set for January of 1986. Because Defcon was on tour and they had so much pull within the government, they settled on a meeting with Congress to discuss their lyrics. There was one stipulation. Defcon didn't have to be present. Instead, Defcon blackmailed, you guessed it, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister to confront Congress and read their agenda to them, which was apparently written by Lefty and the Robot. Congress now bowed to the metal gods and their music. January 12th was now Defcon Day and a nationally recognized holiday by the U.S. and Canada. With their political issues at rest and with the power of the people and the government on their backs, Defcon released their second major album, One Life to Live. It immediately went quadruple platinum in 20 countries in 20 minutes, which was a world record. By now, Defcon was the biggest musical artist ever and grossed more than $2.3 billion a day. They celebrated by having sex with skanks, doing drugs, and killing fans whenever they pleased. July 21st of 1986 was the biggest concert to date, Deaf Fest. It was the largest crowd of deaf people to ever go to a concert. The concert was held at Wembley Stadium. 112 people died from brain hemorrhaging. 3 months later, Defcon played Budapest, in which 89 people died and also 15 camels. Never before have camels died in the name of metal, but they loved it.
At first they were one of the most metal bands around, like Slayer type of shit, but then they started getting into a drug problem, and then all of a sudden their shit started to sound like Pink Floyd.
Man, sometimes we didn't know what was going on. I mean, we missed shows because of that shit. We missed practices. You know, we really, really suffered because of that stupid bull.
Like, I don't even know what they're up to. It was like some kind of Pink Floyd type stuff.
I could see the decline of the band at that point.
Because Defcon had not released an album in quite some time, the Cold War ended. Both Russia and the US turned their focus toward Defcon, blaming them for no good music in almost 2 years. CNN only talked about how Defcon was finished and that no other record in history could beat out One Life to Live. On Defcon Day in 1989, January 12th for you retards that are too drunk to follow this, Megadeth announced that they would release one more record and tour and then pursue other musical avenues. Lefty and Megadeth got their shit together and stopped doing drugs for the record of Escaping Exile. Escaping Exile was a double album, 1-track instrumental lasting for a little over 2 hours. Album sales tripled that of One Life to Live. Defcon was now making more money than all countries on Earth combined. Lefty and Megajair quickly started experimenting with meth, buying the blue stuff being sold specifically in the southwestern U.S. Their riffs were now even more lightning fast. In late February at the Grammys, Megajair was nominated and won Best Guitarist to Ever Live, Fastest Guitarist to Ever Live, Most Treble to a Guitar Tone, and Most Babies Conceived During a Solo in one tour award. The Robot won the Fastest Double Bass Award, the bassist won the Most Brutal Mask, and Lefty was a seat filler for their guitar tech, Devhead, who could not make it that evening. Defcon set out in June on their final tour, the Snail Trail Tour. From June until September, Defcon played a show every night around the world. The average death toll per concert was 243 people. World record.
Yeah, you know what? I was invited to go on that tour, and you know what? I'm pretty glad I declined on that one. There was a lot of cocaine on that tour. And let's just say that band didn't come out the same.
Growing up, like, Defcon was a real big inspiration. I remember being a little kid, going to their shows, sold out, mosh pits where people were getting decapitated and shit. Like, it was real. Like, you wouldn't go near that. Like, their wall of death, like, people's eyes would bleed.
After the Snail Trail Tour, things for Defcon seemed to go perfectly. They were selling albums. However, fans knew the band was probably over. In 1990, a mass suicide was done in Berlin, Germany. Over 670 people died to try to sway Defcon to make another record. From talking with people around the band, they seemed that they would. Until March. The bassist was charged in March for the murder of 23 people in 21 states. Police made the arrest while he was at his home in New Brunswick, Kentucky. Police had said there were body parts found in closets, walls, refrigerators, freezers, and buried in the concrete base of the home. The bassist denied the accusations publicly. The bassist served 18 months in Kentucky's maximum security prison.
Greg? Oh, he was a up individual.
You know, every now and again, you just get that fleeting thought that, like, holy shit, this guy's probably got some, like, dead people in his basement. You know, that's the kind of thought that you get from this guy. Just like an odd, creepy feeling. And it turns out one day, holy this guy really did have some people in his basement. I mean, it's just like, you know, it's like you hear about that shit on the news, but you never really think it's going to be somebody you know, let alone somebody you played in the band with, right? I mean, I was stringing that guy's basses, for Christ's sake. Okay, I remember changing his E strings. And I'm never going to forget that. And this guy was like, he was eating these people. I mean, I just, like, you know, I can never look at a bass the same way again after that, okay? Just, you know.
During the 18 months, the Robot released a statement saying that the band was no more. Each member of the band was not heard from. In August 1991, the bassist was released from prison on a technicality. Riots erupted on behalf of fans trying to get Defcon back together.
Oh, that was normal. I mean, when you take a top-selling band for 15 years and put them in prison, I mean, people are going to demand an album. I mean, it's just metal demand. I mean, when you need that much metal, who else is going to supply it other than Defcon? I can't think of anyone.
4 years later, in August 1995, Defcon frontman Megajair released the statement that the band would perform one reunion show in Brazil in September of 1996. The Robot hired 1 million people from around the world to help start promotions for the reunion show. Megajair and Lefty started training for the show, doing finger exercises for 8 hours a day and upping their intake of meth to the level of Gary Busey. The Robot also hired a crew of 20 people to be his servants and to help him train. The bassist spent most of his days cooking unique recipes for animal brains. Within the year of promotions, $2.2 billion was made by Brazil. Tickets were sold out in 1.4 seconds from around the globe, a world record. The amount of deaths related to ownership of tickets is estimated to be in the millions. Finally, the day had arrived. 1 million tickets were sold, and an estimated 1.2 million people were at the concert to enjoy Defcon's last show. Because of the great response, Defcon had the show made into a DVD called the Brazilian Brutality Box Set, which included the DVD, all of Defcon's albums on rare diamond-encrusted vinyl, a bag of blue meth, and a spatula designed by the bassist. It was their last hurrah. The members packed it in and left. No one heard anything from the band until March 9th, 1997. Rapper and artist Notorious B.I.G. was found shot to death in an SUV outside of a club in L.A. Found beside him was Defcon's own, the bassist. Both were shot in the head and died instantly. Rumors swirled about whether or not the shooting was from a rival gang, a government setup, or from Megadeth frontman Dave Mustaine for Defcon getting more popular than he ever did. No statement was released by Lefty, Megajer, or the Robot.
A conspiracy theory involved with Greg's death? I don't know. Maybe it was an East Coast, West Coast thing. Maybe it was the family of the people that he killed. I don't know.
Oh, he was totally sucking his everybody knows that. But that's besides the point.
Told him to stay away from that shit. I mean, it's just like, anybody with any kind of talent who plays an instrument should not be around with like hip hop or rap music. I mean, that's just given. I don't understand why he was, associating with that particular element. But he did get shot, and it's a tragedy. But I can't say that he didn't have it coming.
Honestly, I think it was Obama. Have you even seen his birth certificate yet? Terrorist.
2 weeks later, Lefty was found dead at Romp and Roll. Cause of death? Choking on someone else's vomit during a severe disco accident. Police say meth was involved.
His was probably the hardest at all. We were all excited for that show at Romp and Roll. I had my disco shoes on. I haven't skated in probably a couple years before then. We were all drinking heavy. I mean, it's no surprise somebody got a little sick that night, but that was definitely the most freak thing I've ever seen. God rest his soul.
Lefty was a great man. Except for one thing. He was left-handed. And at the end of the day, honestly, that's what matters, That's what we should do. With all the left-handed people, we need to send them out on this ship in the ocean and sink it halfway. That way so there's a little bit of drama as it goes down. Because you don't want them to sink too quickly, or else where's the pain and suffering? Where's the pain and suffering? And I think that's what Lefty's death is all about. That's what it tells us today. Where is the pain?
After having 2 of the members die, the Robot released the statement that he was dying from super AIDS that he got while banging a hooker in Sri Lanka, Cambodia. 5 minutes after the press conference, he died. No one really knows what happened to Megajer. The official story was that he was shot in the head 85 times and his right arm was cut off and stolen by a rogue sleeper cell group of terrorists on Segways called the TIP. It was rumored that the TIP sold the arm to Hideo Kojima to help him direct his new Metal Gear Solid franchise. Although that was the story on the news, some people around him felt differently. A body was never recovered. Some fans say that one day he'll return to metal just like Jesus and smite pop stars with lightning-fast solos. Others say he was reincarnated as that girl shredder that everyone saw on YouTube a few years back.
I believe he's alive. He might be Buckethead. He might be Walter Schloth. What is that?
We're keeping that. No, we're keeping.
Alright, you know what I'm saying? Honestly, I really don't think Megajer is really dead. I just don't believe it. There's things behind the scenes that people don't know about that just ain't true. I've been hearing stories that he was heard down in Jamaica, living with Tupac, hanging out, just smoking and everything. I just don't believe him, man. And I believe that one day he's coming back. You know what? I even think he's back now, making secret appearances as somebody else. Maybe like Slash or someone. He's like the Wonder Slash of the whole world.
You can say whatever you want about Jer's death. I heard he was stung to death by bees. I heard he was stung to death by dogs.
But in the meantime, some people say he's still alive, living in an underground bunker somewhere in Hawaii with Elvis.
The last time that I heard any information on Megajer, I have a secret contact who works through the U.S. Embassy in Kazakhstan, who currently has relations with the pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine. And Megajer is currently, to the best of my knowledge, okay, these come from reports from clandestine sources. I can't give you their names, obviously, but he is the leader of the pro-Russian separatists currently seizing government buildings in East Ukraine.
You know what? It wouldn't surprise me. There's been some crazy rumors going around saying he's still playing guitar. And I've been to a show. The guitarist, he played with, I think a band called Guns N' Roses. What's his name? I think Buckethead. Yeah, and all I gotta say is I've seen Buckethead before that, and he wasn't the same. Definitely looks like a different person now.
Megajer's dead. And I know, because I watched the body get cold. And I laughed. I told you he's dead. He's absolutely dead. And I'm not revealing the location, because that would be incriminating. I'm not telling you.
On June 12, 1997, a funeral and metal concert was held in 17 different countries around the world to show their respect and to honor the greatest band and the greatest guitarist to ever grace the earth with his presence. 1.1 billion people around the world died in mosh pits that day. Famous celebrities like Justin Bieber, who was 3 years old at the time, were sacrificed in London in hopes that Megajer would return from the skies and answer their pleas.
You know, the music overall was like, it's one of the most impressive things I've ever heard to date. It was the thrashiest shit you ever heard. You know, they killed it every night. But the death of Defcon was a sad day. It was a dark day. It was the day that metal really died. You know, there's that movie, The Music Man, The Day the Music Died. The day the music died was when Defcon died. Right on, man.
Although all the members in Defcon died in tragic ways, their music lives on in the hearts and minds of every person that walks this earth. Fans were touched in every way imaginable through their music. Ultimately, Defcon sold more than 23 trillion albums worldwide as of the year 2000. The world lost the greatest band in human history during this century. Defcon left this earth, and our 4 heroes will live on through their incredible metal. We are simply blessed to have known them. And now we have to listen to jabronis like music from another room. Fuck our lives.